Mavericks guard Jaden Hardy. Jaden, what do you want to say to Mavericks fans as you guys are now home for the next 7 games and what you guys are ready to do here at the AAC here?
Oh yeah, me and the guys, we're super excited to be back home, playing in front of the best fans in the world, and hopefully we can get these streaks back going and Mavs rolling again. So, yeah.
What message would you have to Mavs fans about what they can expect for the rest of the season and the excitement going forward here?
Oh yeah, what they can expect for the rest of the season is us coming out there and competing and giving our all out here. And, hopefully we can bring home that championship this year. So,
all right, man.
Welcome to another episode of Inside the Mavs. Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre and post game host on 97.1 The Freak on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts for free. And if you're watching this video on my YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports, really appreciate you subscribing to the YouTube channel as well. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. Give me a follow there. You can also follow me there on Facebook and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports as well. Be sure to give the Inside the Mavs podcast a follow on social media on Twitter at Inside the Mavs, and give the podcast a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. Going to get you ready for this weekend's action for your Dallas Mavericks as they look to make it 2 in a row when they take on the Portland Trail Blazers on Friday as they continue their season-long 7-game homestand at the American Airlines Center after beating up on the Portland Trail Blazers on Wednesday by 29, 126-97. They'll look to make it 2 in a row and do something that they haven't done since we've started this 2 straight game format where a team is either on the road or at the same place and try to win and sweep 2 games in a row against the same opponent. The Mavericks look to do it against the Trailblazers on Friday. And as you heard and saw there on today's episode, I'm going to be having a conversation with Jaden Hardy, Mavericks guard, talking to him about the 4 portion of this season now that the Mavericks are 5 games over 500 coming into the game against Portland, what he has learned so far through the first 35 games for this team, what he believes his team is going to be going for the rest of the year, and what he wants to continue to work on as part of his game. You'll hear that conversation a little bit later on in the show. But as far as today's episode is concerned, the Mavericks are looking to build on what they were able to do with the return of Kyrie Irving, who came back against Utah back on Monday, albeit in a 37-point loss to the Utah Jazz. But they were able to turn things around on Wednesday when Doncic combined for 70 points, 41 from Luka Doncic and 29 from Kyrie Irving in just 3 quarters of work. And you saw the offensive music that these two made together in the 3 quarters of work that they did against the Portland Trail Blazers. And they'll look to continue that offensive onslaught against Portland on Friday. But for the Mavericks, it's about continuing to build momentum going forward now as they enter into one of the most crucial portions of their schedule this season. Right now, as things currently stand, they are on the outside looking in when it comes to the top 6 of the West. The New Orleans Pelicans are sitting there at 21-14, while the Mavericks are at 20-15. Keep that in mind because the Mavericks will see the New Orleans Pelicans at the end of this homestand for the final 2 games of this 7-game home stint. So it's important for the Mavericks, especially to beat up on a really bad team in Portland, who really had no fight on Monday when you saw the Mavericks jump out to a 9-0 run and really never look back from there. It was their 3rd wire-to-wire win of the season. They'll look to bring that same kind of energy tonight against the Portland Trail Blazers and into the weekend as well when we look at what they have this upcoming weekend for their games. But they will be without potentially Derek Lively and Grant Williams. Unfortunately, in the game on Wednesday, Derek Lively for the second time against the Blazers this season, sprained his left ankle. Grant Williams sprained his right ankle in the 4th quarter. Neither one of them obviously returned to the game. So for them, it's going to be about getting as healthy as quickly as they can. Right now, Derek Lively questionable going into the game against the Portland Trail Blazers. Grant Williams trying to figure out the same as well with the questionable game status. Dante Exum will not be playing in this game as he is doubtful and is still dealing with his right heel contusion. And Maxi Kleber, his right small toe, still dislocated at this point and no timetable for his return. But Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and others are good to go when they get ready to take on Portland. But this, again, is about continuing to move forward and trying to find a way to climb back into the top 6. And most importantly, continue to bring the kind of energy and fight, especially against bad teams, to continue to pad your record. The Mavericks right now are 13-3 against sub 500 teams so far this year. So they're beating up on bad teams, not doing so hot against decent teams. But at the same time, when you have the opportunities to be able to win games that you're supposed to, you have to do it. You cannot be taking L's when you're not supposed to be, especially when you got your two best players on the floor, and that you will have that with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. So for the Mavericks, win against Portland, continue to move forward as far as your schedule is concerned, and put yourself in a position as we look at their schedule going forward to get ready for that game on Sunday against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who we know the last time the Timberwolves were at the American Airlines Center, Naz Reid had a career game, it felt like, knocking down a bunch of threes, and you saw the Timberwolves able to walk down the Mavericks in that particular game. That's why the importance of Derek Lively is such, because if he is not available against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who present one of the biggest teams and most physical teams defensively in the NBA, it's going to be tough sledding for them. And then when you look at the Mavericks and the rest of their schedule after Sunday, they take on Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies on Tuesday. So you've got a game on Friday against the Portland Trail Blazers. Then you welcome in the Minnesota Timberwolves on Sunday. And then you welcome in Ja Morant on Tuesday. Minnesota on Sunday. And then welcome in Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies on Tuesday. So you've got to get a win. I don't like to assign must wins this early on in the season, but Minnesota coming in on Sunday and then Memphis coming in on Tuesday, yeah, you need to handle your business against the Portland Trail Blazers, a team that's very active with their hands, averages nearly 9 steals per game, top 5 in the NBA, a team that has a top 10 in terms of deflections. They have a lot of deflections, over 520 deflections on the season. This is a team that likes to get into passing lanes and force the issue in terms of turnovers. And if you can protect the basketball, and for the Mavericks case, like they did on Wednesday, force turnovers for the Portland Trail Blazers, you can get out in transition, where they doubled up the Portland Trail Blazers 28-14 in fast break points. So the formula is knock down shots from 3, which the Mavericks are good at doing. Also force the issue in terms of getting in the passing lanes and creating turnovers for the Portland Trail Blazers, and then converting those points off of turnovers, especially in transition. And of course, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving setting the tone early on offensively with energy and pace to be able to put Portland on its heels. If the Mavericks are able to do those things, they should win fairly comfortably at home against Portland. And then when you take on Minnesota on Sunday, especially if Derek Lively is not playing in the game against Portland, then you'll need to ensure that you're playing as disciplined as you can and knocking down good shots and making the extra pass to try and get Minnesota out of rhythm on defense, where they have a lot of length, size, and athleticism that presents issues for the Mavericks. And for the Mavericks defensively, things have been getting much better. I encourage you to read the latest piece in The Athletic by Tim Cato, who details how good the Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, Dante Exum, Derek Lively foursome have been so far this year. The on-off numbers for Luka Doncic are what they are, but when you look at the offensive and defensive rating for this team with those 4 on the floor together, it's night and day. In fact, when you look at the numbers for those guys so far this year, as I pull it up based off of what I see here, this lineup, when it comes to Derek Lively, Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, and Dante Exum so far this year, and again, small sample size, as again, this is per 100 possessions. These 4 have not played 100 possessions together as of yet. Shout out to the injuries that we've seen for this team deal with so far. But this lineup, with an offensive rating of over 143, with a defensive rating of 103. That's right, boys and girls. That's a net rating of 40.1 on the plus side. So hopefully when Lively and Dante Exum get healthy and return to this lineup, you will see a much bigger sample size in what those 4 can do together based off the length and the athleticism that Derek Lively presents in the middle, and the same for Dante Exum with his ability to guard on the perimeter And the added bonus for him so far this year, knocking down shots from the outside and being much more aggressive and more willing to knock down those shots. But defensively, when you look at the last couple of weeks for the Dallas Mavericks, things have improved quite a bit. And we've talked about this coming into the season. If this team could be average defensively throughout the course of the year, this team will win a lot of ball games. And let's take a look over the last couple of weeks. Appreciate Tim Cato for the information once again. Over the past 2 weeks, Dallas is allowing just 112.7 points per 100 possessions. That's good for 6th in the league over the last couple of weeks, and overall 19th in the NBA. So the defense that they're playing, coupled with getting healthy in the offense that we know this team is going to be playing with all season long, hopefully healthy-wise, between Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, if this team could get somewhere between 15 and 18 and remain there defensively throughout the course of the year, they will win a lot of ball games, because there's no doubt what this team will be able to do offensively. A team that's got 2 guys in the top 10 and knocking down 3-pointers so far this year with Luka Doncic and Tim Hardaway Jr., a team that knocks down a bunch of threes at a high rate, a top 10 3-point shooting team overall in the league so far this year. So they're going to knock down a bunch of outside shots. Luka Doncic is going to create for himself and for his teammates at will throughout the course of the year. Derrick Jones Jr. and others have been knocking down shots at a career rate, especially in the case of Derrick Jones, and have provided floor spacing for this team to allow driving lanes for Kyrie Irving and for Luka Doncic. The wild card here being Kyrie Irving, and if he can remain healthy and on the floor throughout the course of the year, because you saw the kind of work that he put in on Wednesday night against Portland, and they will need that scoring against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who present guys like Anthony Edwards, who seems like he's scoring 35 points a night every single night at this point, especially when you've got guys like Karl Anthony Towns and others that can get and make shots themselves. So for the Mavericks, this is about continuing to put pressure on teams defensively with your array of shot making and creation from your 2 superstars and Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and then the supporting cast around them, especially once they're healthy, continuing to fit into their roles and understanding what time it is to be able to provide balance and continuity for this Mavericks team. And that's been one thing that has been lacking so far this year, is the continuity for this team. Going into the game against Utah, they had started 19 different starting lineups. That was the most in the NBA at that point, and you've seen the kind of health that they've been dealing with, or lack thereof, so far this year. So if this team can remain at least average defensively, build some continuity and chemistry together on the floor with more time together spent together on the floor while knocking down shots at a high rate, which this team does, living by the 3 and dying by the 3, while Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are continuing to put together terrific offensive performances every single night, the Mavericks can start to find some consistency, and they are going to be buoyed by that, hopefully, by what they continue to do on this homestand, which is, again, why it's so important for this team to continue to move forward and build as much momentum as they can at home, because of the difficulty of their schedule that they've experienced so far this year, with the amount of road and home and road back-to-backs. The first 8 games of the year alternating road and home games. This team has had a very difficult schedule, and now hopefully gets to settle in at the American Airlines Center to put some things together, both offensively and defensively. And don't underestimate the amount of improvement this team can see as they continue to get practice time. We saw that when they had their trip to Los Angeles, when they took on the Lakers and the Clippers. The ability to actually have some practice time when they're not spending all their time on a plane or playing a road game somewhere allows them to work on some things to be able to improve on defensively. And you saw how those things worked out in Los Angeles. Hopefully the same will continue in Dallas, as they have the kind of practice time, being at home and being able to have a consistent schedule that allows them to build that rhythm and continuity that they're looking for. Because no matter what team you are in this league, you've got to find a way to have consistent lineups with terrific continuity and chemistry to allow you to build the kind of consistency you need to sustain, whether it be streaks or at least consistent play throughout the course of the year. And the Mavericks at times have had some up and down even play. Again, some of that dealing with health and the amount of guys that they've had to shuffle in and out of the lineup to try to find some level of consistency throughout the season. But the Mavericks have a chance to continue to improve themselves, be better defensively, more consistently defensively, and then be able to stack some wins at the American Airlines Center. And the supporting cast has to continue to play well, whether it's Tim Hardaway Jr. coming as a leading sixth man of the year candidate, Josh Green, who we have seen obviously back on the floor after dealing with the right elbow sprain, as he continues to grow in his game, being a guy that provides energy, especially getting up and down in transition, knocking down threes, and he's got to be a defensive presence on to provide some length and athleticism for the kind of rotational minutes that he's going to need. Grant Williams, who's been a bit of a disappointment so far, he's got to get back healthy and on the floor to be able to provide that much more depth, which will be tested throughout the course of this homestand now that this team is dealing with the kind of injuries that they're dealing with. And part of that depth is for Jaden Hardy to continue to play the way that he's been playing. You look games, he's got double digits in 3 out of his last 4 games. He had 17, unfortunately, in the when they went there back on December 28th, 118-110, but he had 17 in the game against Utah, where he was able in that third quarter to really keep the Mavericks, try to keep them close in that game, knock pointers in the period, and then had 11 points in the game on Wednesday, albeit in cleanup time against the Portland Trail Blazers. My point being, all hands have to be on deck for this team to be able to move forward, and Jaden Hardy understands that. Here is my conversation with the Mavericks guard on what he hopes to see in the 2024 rest of the season for this team, what this team has been working on, but most importantly, what he expects for this team over the next several games at home and how that can help build momentum going forward from there. Here's my conversation.
New year, 2024, coming off of the first 33, 34 games. How are you feeling about where this team is going into now the next portion of the season, man?
Coming into the new year, there's some things that, that we've talked through as a team and things that we need to clean up. But overall, I feel like we're in a good position. Guys still getting to, know each other, and, it's a new team this year, so we're still trying to figure each other out. So still, building that camaraderie and chemistry. But I feel like we're in a great spot, just continue to build. We feel like, we have a great team, a great group of guys to be able to compete with anybody. So just being able to, put everything together. And I feel like that's what we've been doing, and, just continue to grow.
This team has gone through a lot in terms of injuries and adversity, and going through and coming through on the other side of that. What have you learned about yourself and this group as you guys have gone through that, but still right now 5 games over 500 coming into the game?
Yeah, like you say, there's been a lot, like you said, a lot of injuries, a lot of things that have happened, but, we talk amongst each other, and we all know it's next man up when somebody goes down. So just being able to be ready whenever your name is called. And for me, I feel like, just being able to continue to grow, to take another step as a player, take my game to the next level, is just continue to, work on my game, listening to guys like Luka and Kai, what they're telling me when I'm out there, and, just staying poised through moments when we're out there and the team's going runs, just to stand together as a team and not breaking apart. And I feel like that's what we've been doing, just talking to amongst each other and trying to stay together when other teams are going runs or that nature, not breaking apart. And I feel like that's how we have been having success this year, by staying together.
And for you personally, how have you felt your game has improved throughout the season as you've gone on, getting the opportunities to be able to have some more run and some more minutes? Where do you feel like your game is at this point?
Yeah, I feel like, I've been improving, at picking my spots, getting to my spots, taking what the defense is giving me. I'm reading the game better now, and, competing defensively, trying to get deflections and steals when I'm out there and bring energy. So I feel like, that's where I've grown, trying to be more efficient with my game, and, taking the right shots, making the right plays.
And as not just a shot maker, but as a playmaker as well, where do you see your game at as far as that aspect of your game is concerned, being more a facilitator and helping these guys, especially on the offensive end?
Yeah, I feel like I've grown in that area too, being able to, play make, get my teammates involved, reading the defense, reading low man, and being able to get my teammates open shots, because I could put the ball on the floor, I could create for myself, but I also could create for others. So just using that to my advantage and creating for my teammates as well.
And that was something you worked on throughout the summer quite a bit as well, focusing that on summer league and now bringing that to the season. Is that something that you feel like you can continue to grow in as far as your game is concerned?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Looking at this team, what has been your favorite part about this team so far now that you get ready for basically the second half of the year as you guys get ready for tonight and then the next 7 games here at home?
I feel like, when I look at this team, we have a lot of talent, and I feel like, we all can just, put our egos aside and, just come together and just focus on one main goal, and that's winning the championship and winning games. Then I feel like we're going to be all fine.
Last couple questions for you. When you look at now what you guys have going forward here, 7 straight games at home, you get to sleep in your own bed for a little bit for the next couple of weeks. I know it's been a tough, go as far as the schedule is concerned. How excited are you personally to be able to have the next 7 here at home, to be able to hopefully stack up some wins and be able to be in front of this crowd here?
No, it feels good. Like you said, now we get to be at home for a bit, so, it's sleep on our own beds. It's always good to, be home with your family and stuff like that, and then playing in front of our fans is always great, and have a home court advantage. So it should be fun, and hopefully we can go get this streak back going. So,
yeah. Last one for you. So for you, what's the one thing for your game that you want to continue now to be able to build upon that you now feel like you can going forward for the rest of the year?
I would say just continuing to read the game. Just reading the game, taking what the defense is giving me, and making the right plays, and still but still playing my game and being aggressive at that same time.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate Jaden Hardy for joining me on the episode today. As you can tell, he and his teammates are really excited to be back at the American Airlines Center for some home cooking, but more importantly, a chance to grow together. And you hear about what he wants to do to improve his game throughout the rest of the year. And that's one of the things that he will continue to have to be better at, is being a playmaker and being a guy that can be relied on as part of that second unit when he has the opportunities to do so, to be able to not only make plays for himself, but for his teammates as well. And if he can, he becomes yet another added value piece for this team, a young guy who loves to knock down three-pointers. You could tell when he has an open shot, he's taking it. He's not shy at all about taking shots, especially from downtown. And you need that kind of aggressive mentality as a young player to continue to grow, but to understand what maturity looks like as far as his game is concerned. So Jaden Hardy, a part of what this depth has to be from the Mavericks going forward, that will continue to be tested, as I mentioned earlier, in this homestand. And if the defense is there based off of what we've seen over the last couple of weeks and what they're able to do from an offensive standpoint, the Mavericks should feel good about what they are. 20-15 through 35 games. You look at what they were last year, similarly around this time, 22-17. We know how things unfortunately went south during the second half of the year when it came to the final portion of last year's season. But this season feels a lot more promising. And with the trade deadline about a month away, what kind of move the Mavericks possibly make with the capital and resources that they have to try and improve this team. The conversations about Pascal Siakam, Jeremy Grant, and others, yes, is out there. But at the same time, the Mavericks feel like what they have right now can move them forward to at least be a top 6 team in the West. And Williams is able to turn things around and get back to the kind of player that he was during the first 7-8 games of the season. This team will feel a lot better about its depth and, most importantly, hopefully stay healthy. We know that the NBA is a war of attrition throughout the course of an 8-game season, and injuries are going to come and go for teams throughout the course of a season. It feels like the Mavericks have been especially ravaged with injuries and have come at different points where they have been trying to develop some kind of consistency, and they have not been able to because injuries have beset them to take away opportunities for that to continue to grow. And we saw that, unfortunately, on Wednesday happen again with Derek Lively II and Grant Williams. Again, their statuses for the rest of the week up in the air. Don Exum looks like we'll miss the game on Friday. But the Mavericks are playing well. At least they did on Wednesday. Now it's about stacking consistency going forward from here, and hopefully not having the seesaw that we've seen throughout the last several games. You look even themselves, you had a win on the 3rd of January against Portland. You lost on New Year's night to the Utah Jazz. Then you had, before that, you won on the road against a Golden State Warriors team that blew what was an 18-point lead with 7 minutes left in the game on Thursday night against the Denver Nuggets, and Nikola Jokic nails a foot bank shot 3 to win the game to cap off what was an insane run, a 25-4 run to close that game. Just insane stuff from the Denver Nuggets. But then prior to that, you lost on the road to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and in that 3-game road trip, or I should say that 4-game trip that the Mavericks had dating back to the Christmas night game against the Phoenix Suns. Look, you went 2-2 on that road trip. You won on Christmas night against Phoenix. You lost your next 2 games on the road to Minnesota, or you lost to Minnesota, then you won against Golden State, and then you lost on the road to Utah. So there's been some up and down, uneven play for this team throughout the last few games. Now is the time for the Mavericks to build, grow, but most of all, stay healthy and beat up on a bad Portland Trailblazers team before you got to welcome in Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and Anthony Edwards on Sunday, and then welcome in Ja Morant for the first time this season with the Memphis Grizzlies. And that's always a fun time watching Luka Doncic take on the Memphis Grizzlies and Ja Morant the same. So for the Mavericks, time to continue to move forward, build and win games, get as much help as you can from all these other guys with the depth pieces that you have, because you're going to have to rely on those guys. But most of all, Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic continue to push this team, empower this team offensively every single night. And if you can get stops in the last 4 or 5 minutes of games, you will give yourself a chance to win a lot of ball games. Again, this team lives by the 3, dies by the 3, but they've got to knock down shots and find ways to get stops when they matter most if they want to win going forward, because the schedule does not get any easier for them when you look at Minnesota, when you look at Memphis, New York as part of this homestand as well. And then, of course, the New Orleans Pelicans, who you're chasing, who are 6th right now in the West, while the Mavericks sit in 7th. All of this is in front of them as they continue to move and get themselves in position to try to capitalize on this 7-game homestand. Exciting stuff if you're a Mavericks fan. Looking forward to watching this team over the next couple of weeks to see what they can do and build consistency, because I'm sure the Mavericks, that's what they're looking for, and Mavs fans are looking for that specifically from this team, to feel good and give them confidence about what they can be going forward for the rest of the year as we get closer to the official halfway point of the season game-wise for this team, now that they've played 35 games so far this year. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Mavs. Again, thank you to Mavs guard Jaden Hardy for joining me on the show today. If you missed anything, you can make sure that you can check it out and watch the video, listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. Episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Make sure you're following my partner, Grant Afseth. He is covering this team all throughout the country throughout the course of the year. I'm sure he's glad to be back in Dallas for a little while to watch this team at the American Airlines Center. You can follow him on Twitter at Grant Afseth, and make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel, same at Grant Afseth as well. You can also download and subscribe to the Inside the Mavs podcast wherever you get your podcast for free on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Make sure you give the podcast a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there, and subscribe to Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. Again, really appreciate you joining me here on this episode. Mavericks take on the Portland Trailblazers on Friday. I'll have the pregame show beginning at 7 o'clock with tip-off at 7:30 with Brad Davis and Chuck Cooperstein. And then, of course, over the weekend as well, when the Mavericks take on the Timberwolves. And then on Tuesday, when they welcome in Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. Follow me at Kevin Gray Sports for all things Mavericks. And again, Mavericks pre and post game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network on 97.1 The Freak. This has been Inside the Mavs, the official Mavericks podcast of 97.1 The Freak, your home of Dallas Mavericks basketball. My name is Kevin Gray, and I'll talk to you next week right here on Inside the Mavs. I'll talk to you later. Peace.